back in Business of Sports, we had touched upon the tender to sell bilateral rights of Indian cricket. We talked about what are these rights. We also talked about how to bucket the formats and how BCCI can sell these rights in terms of various different formats. But I remember in that episode, I had also promised that we will come up with an episode where we will talk about the values to expect in this tender. However, from that episode to this one, a lot many things have been changed, and there is a big twist out there. Now, you all must be thinking that what's the twist? So let me tell you. BCCI currently in a dilemma whether to sell this tender right now or should they wait. Now, you all must be thinking that why they should even wait because it was planned that they will come up with a tender. Well, as per my thinking, as per my guesses, I believe that there aren't enough buyers. But for the right answer, we have only one person who will give us the sure shot answer up for this question. And that's none other than Network 18 Group Sports Editor K. Shriniwas Rao. Hello, Srini. Welcome to BOS.
Hi, Suramya. Thank you so much.
So, Srini, I just introduced everyone to this topic of, tender for the bilateral rights of Indian cricket, and we had touched upon it in our episode that we did a few weeks back, and this episode is just an extension to it. So, at that point of time, we were discussing about the formats and how this can be done and all of this. But now, the whole discussion has changed. Now we are talking about what is the problem with BCCI because I believe they are in a dilemma. They are thinking of waiting a bit and then looking out to sell these rights. What is the whole thing?
Okay. Uh, yeah. I'll start with an example and I'll keep coming back to this point again and again as we go forward, right? Think of a 100-meter race where Usain Bolt is running among other racers,
Okay.
okay? Among other sprinters. And then
Hmm.
there is one runner which is running with on one leg. So, just keep that picture in mind where you have an Usain Bolt, you have different sprinters, and then you have an Usain Bolt. What is this example? I'll explain it to you. The different sprinters are the different
Okay.
cricket properties anywhere around the world. Okay,
Hmm.
which is the South African Premier League, the ILT20, the Caribbean Premier League, the 100, the ICC, the US Cricket League. They're all sprinters. Usain Bolt is IPL. The pace at which Usain Bolt is running is the IPL. The the sprinter running on one leg is bilateral cricket. Okay, think of a scenario like
Okay.
that. And in this context, since we are discussing BCCI,
Okay.
to cut through the clutter, think of IPL as Usain Bolt and think of the sprinter with one leg as bilateral rights. Now, there are only two options. Either this one-legged sprinter gets dragged away with Usain Bolt because that is the pace at which Usain Bolt is running, or gets left behind. There's no other way, right? And in that lies BCCI's dilemma. Do they allow Usain Bolt alone to win and not bother if the other one gets lagged behind and in the race? Or do they do something about ensuring that the one legged sprinter also manages to complete the finish line? In that lies the dilemma that BCCI is in right now. And they have to find an answer. The clock is ticking. The clock is ticking at a very fast pace. And the race doesn't stop for anyone.
Hmm.
The race goes on. The show goes on,
Hmm.
right? So BCCI has to think
Yeah.
extremely fast here and decide, is it content running Usain Bolt, or does it really want all its sprinters, including the one legged
Hmm.
runner, to run the race? Now, when I say a one legged runner, is the situation so bad? When obviously I'm referring to the bilateral, right? No, the situation is not so bad. But everybody in the industry and including BCCI, by virtue of not giving this enough thought, is deliberately putting this in my mind that the scenario is so bad that the sprinter is literally running on one leg. If you ask me, is the scenario actually so bad? No, it is not. The scenario can actually turn out to be pretty good if the BCCI turns out to be a little more proactive in the whole thing.
Yeah. So that is the thing, the whole example of Usain Bolt is quite interesting because, now you understand this, that where and how BCCI is running the race. And, when I talk about BCCI, I really want to know one thing, because I know it's just been couple of weeks where we were discussing about the bilateral rights, we were discussing about the formats, and cut to 2 weeks later, we are discussing here that what they should do now. And there it leads me to this question, that what they should do now. Okay, they are running in a race, and they have to reach somewhere, right? They need to do something. And in that terms, should they look in for some temporary solution and win the race, or they should look in for a long term benefit, or in a long term solution to this, and then be the king of the market?
So recently there were media reports saying that BCCI may not bring out the tender now. Instead, what the BCCI is going to do is temporarily sell There's a series before the World Cup. Again, I think we are playing 3 one-day matches against Australia. It's a very short series just before the World Cup. So this story that appeared in the media suggested that BCCI may temporarily sell those 3 matches separately, and then think about the tender later. Um, Now, I don't agree with the story on 2 counts. I don't agree with the logic behind the move, and I don't factually agree with the story also. And I'll deal with both the questions separately, both the points separately. I don't believe in the logic of doing something like this. I'll explain to you again what the story said. The story said that, for whatever reason, BCCI will not come out with a tender to sell it bilateral rights for the next 5 years. In the tender, they'll come out with it later. But right now, because they have a three match series coming over and they don't have a broadcaster, they can't give it to Star alone, the existing brothers. They have to float a tender. So the story said that they will float a tender only for these 3 matches, get away with it, and then do the tender separately. So I'm saying the story I don't agree with on two counts. One is, logically I don't agree with the story. Factually I don't agree with the story. So logically, why? Because why will you float a temporary tender to sell 3 matches, and it will set a benchmark out there among the broadcasters, right? As to what the broadcasters are thinking. So why will they come and put top money into it? You will never get to know. You will never ever understand who is thinking what. And if somebody has to come and put a per match value, whether it is now or whether it is later, your first priority should be to get an idea whether the existing broadcaster is willing to come and put money in your business. That is what BCCI needs to understand, not hiding behind some curtain and saying, right now, let me just sell these 3 matches and then I'll figure out later. No, that's a wrong way to approach it. So, logically, I don't agree with this, because the right thing to do would be to go and discover the price for the entire 5 year window, rather than just thinking, the shortcut way. It's not going to help. Factually, this is not correct, because again, BCC has not made any decision on these lines. I can guarantee you, and who knows? They might still be considering, try and figure a way out where they can sell the entire 5 year right cycle. Right cycle. Yeah.
Yeah. So in that terms, you are saying that, BCCI really needs to look in for a long-term solution, isn't it?
Yeah. In this particular, yeah, actually, in every given space, BCCI needs to look for long term solutions. That's what I've always felt.
Yeah, so you talked about the long term solutions, but if I see the year 2023 only, I don't think so that the tender to sell these bilateral rights is the only problem that BCCI is dealing with. Because if we talk about the problems, then in a few of our previous episodes, we talked about the contract with Baiju's, MasterCard, how all these contracts are ending up. And then we also talked about the whole issue with the sponsorship deals and all of it. And I think BCCI really needs to come up with the answers to all these problems in this year itself. And when we talk about it, I really want to know that how BCCI is approaching all these problems, especially that the last India versus Australia match was the last one with Star in contract. Now BCCI is left with no one. So in that case, what's BCCI is looking up to?
Okay, so yes, you're right. The match that happened between India and Australia, the last ODI was the final ODI of the right cycle between BCCI and Star. After that, there ceases to be a broadcaster. There's no
Yeah.
broadcaster right now. Okay. Other than that, the contract with Baiju
Hmm.
also got over. The contracts with Mastercard is also technically the financial year is over, right? Baiju is clear that they
Hmm.
don't want to continue anymore. So BCCI needs to get
Hmm.
a sponsor, okay, a jersey sponsor, right?
Hmm.
Now Mastercard wants to exit, but for Mastercard to exit, they have to
Hmm.
get a replacement. But they want to exit. How much is Baiju's
Hmm.
paying? The Baiju's took over from Oppo. Oppo was paying around 4.6 crore per game. Baiju came in at a 10% increment, so let's say around 5 crore per game. These are
Hmm.
rough figures. I'm not telling you the exact figure, right? And Mastercard came in at some 3.7 or
Hmm.
3.8 crore per game for title. And then, MPL, the apparel sponsor, I can tell you, they have got a replacement. They've got a lovely replacement. Adidas is on board. It was a Cricket Next story. Cricket Next had broken the story that Adidas is going to come on board as the apparel sponsor. They are going to come on board from June onwards. BCCI will release the a press release on this before this month gets over, before the month of April gets over, and yeah. So that leaves with these two major sponsors: title and jersey. Right now, I can tell you there are people who want to come on board, except they are not willing to give the BCCI more than 1 year's commitment at the price that BCCI wants. Now, BCCI says that mujhe, give me what Baiju is paying, right? So, if you want a commitment at the same price at which Baiju is paying, there are sponsors ready to come on board, but they are not ready to come on board for more than 1 year. And if BCCI wants a long term solution for it, they have to go for a cost cutting. So the BCCI here has to take a call whether they want to look at a short term solution and get somebody on board as an immediate replacement, ensuring that the value is up there, or they want to get somebody on board keeping the next 5 years in mind, even if they have to take a slight hit. And in that, the dilemma continues. It's an extremely important here, remember, because all these puzzles have to fit for Indian cricket to move forward. And of course, they might fit, but in what manner they fit will drive the narrative going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. There are plenty of challenges in front of BCCI currently. And when we talk about these problems, I remember in few episodes of Business of Sports, we touched upon how BCCI acts like a lala. And I still remember the day you said that, BCCI as a lala, they really need to come out of their comfort and explore the market because the market is evolving. And when we are talking about this whole topic, Srini, I really want to know that is it the right time where this Lala needs to go out and look at what the market is up to? And also one another thing, because so far BCCI has acted upon that chair and they have waited for the consumers or the buyers to come to the shop. Is it the time that BCCI really needs to step out of the shop and really needs to looking for the interested candidates?
Well, yeah, I mean, now is the time. BCCI needs to start kind of going out and getting an understanding of the market right away. And this year is going to be a very challenging year for BCCI because they have
Yeah.
set a benchmark for themselves, both in terms of Indian cricket and in IPL, in terms of drawing top dollar from the market. And they have to now ensure how they keep that benchmark alive and ticking. So anything that they do, they are going to be judged by whether they could keep those numbers going or not. So for example, in 2022, the IPL created a record of sorts where they got in 1,000 crore sponsorship per season, and this was for the first time. And now, can the BCCI keep that 1,000 crore mark going? That is a challenge that they will have to battle coming season onwards. Likewise, as I said, you,
Hmm.
if you want the same value that Oppo was paying and then later Baiju was paying, you have to take these calls whether you want a short term investor or a long term investor. If you're identifying a long term investor, what exactly are you promising the investor? And for that, you have to sit down, engage with that investor, show the sponsor the
Hmm.
potential roadmap going forward. And these are things which BCCI is not used to doing. They're not used to wearing a business suit, going, giving a PowerPoint presentation and saying, sir, this is what we will do for you. No, no, I am BCCI. You tell me what you are going to do for me, boss. So this is an attitude issue which they have to change. And I say this with due respect. I don't say this disrespectfully. But then you have to change, because सामने वाला भी तो business
Hmm.
करने के लिए बैठा है. The other person is also waiting to do business with you, right? So you
Yeah.
have to bring certain changes in the manner in which you approach the business. That's all.
Well, yes, absolutely. But Srini, I didn't understand one thing. We discussed upon so many things in our previous episodes. Today, also, you told me about, what BCCI needs to do and all of it. Everything is great. And in all the episodes, we talked about that, India is a really big market of cricket, and everybody looks upon India and they see, okay, there's a huge market for cricket to explore in this country and all of that. But then what is the problem with the sponsorship? Why sponsors don't want to deal with BCCI? There must be some mismatch. And, I want to know what is this mismatch about and how this can be corrected.
It's a very, very interesting question, Suramya. And on one hand, we say that cricket just a sport, and nothing sells in this country the way cricket does, right? It's 80% of the market is occupied by
Hmm.
cricket. No other sport sells. The media is crazy after cricket. Television, no sport sells like cricket does. And then, therefore, money and sponsorships and also come into cricket. The way they come, they don't go into any other sport. And if that is the case, then why exactly are we looking at such a watertight situation where there is a larger worry whether BCCI can retain the sponsorship numbers or not? Now, the answer to that is, the answer to that lies in a combination of things, and I'll break it down. For example, number one, the businesses themselves are changing. Okay, you are you are in an era of startups, right?
Hmm.
You are in an era of startups compared to, let's say, 10 years
Yeah.
ago, where established businesses were the ones funding larger ecosystems, right?
Hmm.
Today, the money, where is money? Where is hard cash?
Hmm.
The hard cash is in
Hmm.
series funding, it's in startups, right? And startups, because at the pace at which they are growing
Yeah.
and the pace at which the money is coming, they are left with a better inflow of cash so as to direct an essential outflow. Okay, look at any you look at any fintech company, for example. A fintech company with a great idea out there in the market makes an impact in the first 5 to 8 years. Money starts coming in. Once the money starts rolling in, what do? You need to create numbers. When the money starts coming in, the first thing you need is eyeballs, people coming in, kind of subscribing to your line of thought, to your business. And what drives those numbers? Visibility. What brings in visibility? Being out there in the public eye. What is there in the public eye? Cricket. So what does the sponsor do? Sponsor goes, puts money in cricket, gets associated with cricket. Cricket drives visibility. Visibility drives eyeballs. Eyeballs drives subscription. And the so-called startup can identify a growth in numbers. This is what happened with, let's say, this fintech company called Upstocks that came on board. And well, it had a certain growth in numbers, and that's why they came as an official
Yeah.
partner in IPL. Now Upstocks wants to leave IPL. Is it
Yes.
because Upstocks doesn't have the money, or suddenly they've gone bankrupt overnight that they don't want to? No, it's because the reason why they came, they have achieved it. They have accomplished it, right? So because they have accomplished it, they now no longer need to spend whatever 65 70 crore per year, right? uh, Now, is every sponsor thinking like that? No, there are sponsors who look at Swiggy. Swiggy and Zomato were in the close to a deal. Swiggy came in, kind of, they wanted to raise the numbers, raise the valuation. They came in, they put in money with IPL, probably, kind of may have found the answers that they were looking for. And then Swiggy decided they don't want to. Like, Swiggy went out and Herbalife came in. So again, every sponsor here is coming with a sort of a big picture in mind. Now, that could be a long term big picture, a short term big picture. That, to each his own, right? Beauty lies in the eye of the beholder. But then, that is not a headache of the sponsor. The headache is of the BCCI to try and find out what kind of a sponsorship slot are you looking to sell, and what kind of a potential sponsor are you looking for. Now, you
Mm.
can't be selling this space to five startup companies and then expect one Tata's with a traditional age-old business to come and stick around with you for 3 years, 5 years, right? Because there is a sort of a mismatch. The
Yeah.
BCCI needs to sit down and identify, is that the way they want to play this game? For example, there are how many? I think there are five OPs right now. BCCI has 4 to 5 official partners. They have a fantasy league partner. They have a pouring partner. Whatever. I mean, 5 to 6 different. They have an orange and purple cap sponsor now. Aramco does
Mm.
it. They have Saudi Tourism on board as one of the official partners. And then they have the Tatas.
Yes.
What exactly are the Tatas, other than you calling it the Tata IPL? Like you and me, when when we sit with our respective families for dinner and we talk IPL, do you tell your dad, how are you watching the Tata IPL? No, you don't, right? You say, Dad, are you watching the IPL, right?
No.
Yeah.
IPL, yeah.
Yeah. So you know what is the value that you're giving? I mean, I don't want to trivialize it. I'm not, I mean, there are people who would put in a lot of imagination into these businesses, so I'm not trying to trivialize it, but I'm saying that there has to be something really enticing for the Tatas to wanting them to continue paying whatever the 300, 350 crores that they're paying you per season, right? What exactly is it?
Mm.
Then, are is the BCCI giving it a thought that, okay, there is a possibility that we may actually, let's bring down the number of official partners. We don't need 5 or 6 official partners, do we? No, let's get them down to only one official partner. We get one official partner and we get one title sponsor. Let's say we say we don't want 500 crores from 5 different sponsors. Instead, we'll take 600 crore, but only from one sponsor, and give that sponsor the canvas for the next 5 years. See, you can't, everything that you earn is not about money. You can't not give
True.
your partner something in return. The, the, the stage at which BCCI is right now, what BCCI needs to now begin to start thinking is, what can I do for you? I think all these while, the
Mm.
last 30, 35 years of Indian cricket, the progress of Indian cricket was people coming and asking BCCI, my bap, please tell me what can I do for you. I think that needs a slight, that narrative needs a slight change, where the BCCI now also needs to stand up and say, tell me what can I do for you. And I think in that
Mm.
lies a change in the narrative that one should be looking at.
Yeah. Well, you have very nicely explained, what BCCI needs to do. But I want to take you a little back, and now we know what BCCI should do in the coming year or in the coming years. But I want to know from you how the past year went by. Because that's very much needed to know, so that we have an idea that, okay, what to expect from BCCI. We can discuss things on X and Y axis, and if we talk about BCCI, that they were working on some Z axis, so the whole thing goes into vain. So we also need to put things into perspective, what they did in the last year. So what was that whole about?
So sponsorships, you're referring to sponsorships, right?
Yeah.
So okay, so let's go by 2021. Okay, pandemic was still on. Because this I had kind of put these numbers out last year. I think I had put these numbers out exactly around the same time last year, March April in 2022. I had spoken about the numbers for 2021, and it's a this is a crazy number considering we were in the middle of the pandemic. A total
Hmm.
sponsorship of 9,535 crore, a total revenue, sorry, not sponsorship, a total revenue of
Okay.
9,535 crore. These were combined revenues from sponsorship, endorsements, media spends in the Indian sports industry. The total revenue
Hmm.
that was generated was 9,535 crore. You
Hmm.
know what was cricket's contribution to this? Cricket's
It must
contribution to
be.
this
Yeah.
was 8,410 crores. Of the
Well, I knew it.
9,000,
I knew it. I actually thought that it must be around 8,000 crores or something.
yeah. So 90% of the market, 90% of the
Hmm.
market went to just cricket alone. And all
Hmm.
the other sports combined received 1,119 crore. Now,
Hmm.
think of it. Every other sport, football, private leagues, Olympic stars, and that was an Olympic year, by the way. We were
Yeah.
preparing for the Tokyo Olympics, and it
The
got
Tokyo
kind of.
Olympics.
That is why the quotient was so big. Otherwise, it would have been far lesser. You know.
Hmm.
So I'm telling you, that is like the overall. By the way, it was a 5% jump from 2019. But you know how much of a jump it was from 2020? It was a 60% jump from 2020, because the kind of consumption that we had in 2020, imagine, that is what the pandemic did. We sat in our living rooms,
Hmm.
and that is the kind of content that we consumed, right? Now,
Yeah.
what if I tell you that when these numbers come out for the year 2022, we are in 2023, right? Our show the next week, the business of
Hmm.
sports show that we do coming Monday, I will be ready with the numbers, sponsorship numbers for the year 2022. And I can tell you that numbers for the year 2022 will surpass the numbers for the year 2021. If you thought 2021 was big, I will take it. 1,000 crores just came in as official partners of IPL. Forget everything else.
Hmm.
48,000 crore में IPL का rights बिका है. IPL rights got sold for 48,000. WPL
Yeah.
got sold for 1,000 crore.
Yeah.
WPL
True.
franchises, five franchises collectively got sold for 4,500 crore. Two new franchises got sold for almost, one went for 7,000 crore, the other went for 5,500 crore. So I'm telling you, the numbers in the year 2022, which again we will see in the coming week, is going to crash through the roof. I can tell you that, guarantee. But
Hmm.
let this not blur you. Let this not blur you, because while I'm so emphatic and while I'm so happy about what I'm going to be telling you next week, I will also say this with a cautionary tale, that the numbers for 2023, when I do this show in 2024, that is where there is a potential setback. And if
Hmm.
nothing is done today to work on it and to bring in a sort of clarity, then I think there's going to be a problem.
Hmm. Absolutely. This is a big money game, and we all know it now. And I mean, it's 1,000 crores is just, a few numbers now when we talk about this game. It's about a little amount of money out there. And obviously, cricket is booming in India, but there we really need to put out these very important questions every time when we sit here in Business of Sports and discuss all these topics. And we bring in all these important questions to be asked from the authorities and all the concerned people out there in the business. And as Srini mentioned, that the topic for next week's Business of Sports is already set. And at that point of time, we will be talking about numbers, and it's going to be really, really fun. And I'm really excited for it. So you also stay tuned with us. And thank you so much, Srini, for joining with me in this episode and telling all of us that what's the dilemma about, because everyone was expecting that you will tell the values to expect in this tender, but the whole topic is changed now.
I think value. Okay, I'll quickly touch upon it. The value, as I said, um, we spoke about it in our previous episode. Please put the link of that episode in the description box when this show goes out.
Yes.
And I said that the value can be identified once the BCCI decides to break down formats. So BCCI has to first take a
Hmm.
call on whether it wants to break down the formats, and if it wants to do it, how exactly. I can tell you one thing for sure: if BCCI doesn't break down
Yeah.
the formats, there is no value coming in, and that is why the BCCI is not in a position to bring out the tender in the first place. I can definitely tell
Hmm.
you that 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 bilateral rights will take a big hit. Even otherwise, they'll take a hit. But if they don't break the formats, bucket the formats,
Hmm.
it'll take a bigger hit. And I don't want to like kind of
Hmm.
go on and on saying this. And again, we have a lot more shows to do. We'll talk the numbers. We'll speak about the numbers. We'll definitely talk about the numbers. But yeah, I can to answer this one point. If they don't break the formats, if they don't bucket the formats, there is a danger of the value following terribly across all formats.
Well, absolutely. Yes, we discussed it in our last to last episode and today as well. Thank you so much, Srini, for joining with me. And we'll see you next week with another interesting topic.
Bye.
So, thank you everyone for joining with us in this week's Business of Sports. We touched upon that what's the dilemma that's BCCI facing currently. And for all other updates, you stay tuned to Cricket Next. Cricket Matlab, Cricket Next.